Okay, well. Music should be volume. Mic should be good. We'll give it a minute or so and then we can start. Hi, Jonathan. Good morning. Ely, have a good next hour or so for New York session. Scanning the market, seeing what we can find, seeing if we can see any potential trade setups. Honestly, haven't looked at charts much today, so session will be pretty raw. So you'll be following along as I basically scan through charts. I haven't looked at basically anything today. Had quite a busy morning, but we are here now, and ideally we can find some trades. Past 2 weeks for me have been pretty slow on the trade front. Been lacking signals. I had some nice signals yesterday, which I want to go through and check on. Those buy signals look pretty good. Like I said, seen some decent sell-offs finally. Have had some time off trading the past couple of weeks, not taking as much, and not because I wanted to, but because the market wasn't allowing me to necessarily take as many and as frequent trades as I was doing through June. June was great for the stocks. We saw a lot of stocks put in 52-week highs in June. See if I can find it. Yeah, so in June, we saw probably 30 stocks hit 52-week highs. So you had like MU, Intel, Marvel, SanDisk, STX, Anubis, or Nubis, NBIS, or I think that's Nebius Group. Moderna, you know, we had a bunch of stocks making fresh 52-week highs. So June was great for stocks, and recently, you know, the past couple of weeks, we've definitely seen some cool-offs from a lot of these stocks. For example, MU down now 30% off the highs. SanDisk, for example, down almost 40% off the highs. So a lot of call-offs happening towards the back end of June and obviously the start of July, which, you know, these excuse me, these call-offs are great opportunities to look at, obviously deciding whether that was a sort of a cycle top for a lot of these tech stocks, or whether we're, you know, seeing some drawdowns and some call-offs into some decent bounces, which for now I think we can start to look at as being the main priority, is that these pullbacks on a lot of these tech stocks are ones for buying right now. You know, we had a lot of hype going into June. Obviously we had the SpaceX IPO, which sucked bunch of people into into the space. You know, we had space stocks doing some crazy numbers through Q2. So all in all, like, we had a lot of reasons why the market was frothy in what I like to call frothy in June and closing out Q2. And since then, we've obviously seen a call off from a lot of stocks. So what I'm kind of in at the moment is this waiting boat. One of the main reasons I haven't really been taking longs is because I've just been biding my time, waiting for some higher time frame signals on a lot of these stocks before buying. And we'll get into crypto and stuff for sure. We'll talk about crypto, but that's kind of been my consensus on stocks here, and we'll go through them today, and we'll see if from my watch list if there's anything worth looking at or taking. Can we check gold? Sure, I can check. A little look at gold. Yeah, everything's been cooling off. Crypto's been holding relatively okay, I guess. The 1 second before I go on to gold. The S&P hasn't, like, despite the market selling off quite a bit, the S&P has been holding pretty well. Overall, you know, the S&P is only down 1.8%, and in fact, since the June high, it only pulled back like 3.5%. Not only, I mean, that's relatively a good pullback size for an asset of this size, but actually had some nice buy signals on that today morning. All right, let's take a look at gold, and we'll move into crypto, because I know probably the majority of people here are, well, if you are here, you're here for sort of crypto side of things, which we'll talk about. I can give all my thoughts on crypto. Gold. Yeah, I called the top on this back in January because I had some pretty strong sell signals on it, and since then, basically called the top and for a sort of lower high. And I didn't get short on this lower high. I'm not entirely sure why I didn't get short on this, because this was just something I was expecting going into the first 6 months of the year, was that we would see some sort of bleed and call off from gold. It is a very important place here for gold, right? This 4K region. First of all, because it is like a big whole number. 4K is like, realistically, 4K does sound like a nice round number and an area for gold to hold, right? Pretty much how we can look at 5K capping it, right? You know, obviously it went to 5,600, but on the higher time frame, if you look at the high time frame, for the most part, 5K kind of capped price, right? So we can look at gold into 4K being a similar area. Not only that, but it's the prior year value area high. So we can see here is the prior year value area high for gold. To this 4.063, so $4,063 area. I'm pretty sure if gold can't hold here, which we can already see it's starting to struggle, right? We can see that even though it's managed to reclaim back above that prior yearly value area high, yeah, prior yearly value area high is struggling. Like, it's sort of, this looks like a bit of a dead cat bounce, right? Which is basically what it's been forming time and time again, is these dead cat bounces into like lower lows, right? Your standard market structure, higher lows into lower lows into lower highs. I'm pretty sure if gold cannot hold 4K in the near term, this is going to sub 3,600 to the 2025 VWAP, the yearly VWAP. You know, multiple reasons. We're trading below the prior quarterly value area low for a start. Personally, if we did pop into 4,200 on gold, I would be open to looking at shorting. Could probably take a short into 4,200s as high as sort of 4270. I'm in validation above there, and I'd likely target 3600s from there. On gold, it's really important that it holds this area. I think if you start to see acceptance under 4K on gold, you have a very, very low volume node and very imbalanced move from gold all the way back to, you know, that August through to October move. What you'll find is that there's often little time traded in here, which means there's most likely the scenario where you could full retrace very quickly. You can almost do the same as what we've done on the way up as we've done to do on the way down. We look at the volume profile. You can see, looking at the volume profile, very low volume node area here. I mean, in fact, all the way down to sort of 3300 on gold in terms of a volume node area in the past year. So it under here, right? Like I said, any acceptance under sort of 4K on gold, I would be very wary of a move to 3500 and maybe even as low as 3400. So for that reason, it does make sense that we could look for a bounce here, but overall, I'm definitely favoring the fact that this looks very, very weak right now, and a move to fresh lows is likely on the cards. Again, could potentially watch for a bounce into here, but I would be inclined to say that this is a dead cat or lower, especially with the way the dollar is looking right now and the strength the dollar is showing in the market, right? You don't trade crypto anymore, use it as investing, but for intraday I trade indices, commodities, forex. Yeah, I think a lot of people. Is the music too loud, guys? Or is it okay? Hi Montana, how's it going? Are you in Mon? No, I'm not in Mon yet, but I am looking for a good move up on Mon. We'll discuss Mon today. It's on my plan to discuss. I got a few coins I want to talk about, but Mon is there. I haven't given an entry in the group just yet. I want to see a good break above a 0.025 to hop into Mon. And I'll give my reasons for that in a minute, but we could talk about Mon now. But yeah, for gold, intra-week, intraday, we could look for a little bounce into 4K. But overall, I think any bounce here is for shorting, and we can target a move into 3600. Okay, Monad. So I put a little post out on this yesterday. Oh, that 3 days is looking pretty nasty right now. Okay. Right now it's looking like a bit of a bearish retest, but I want to show you my outlook on Mon. So I actually played this setup on Hype last year in May. I ended up selling it for like a 50% move. It doesn't always, like, these sort of fractals, I don't necessarily like to say something will do the exact same as Hype did, right? Because, you know, even though this PA looks identical, right, what you have is a support area, right? You have like support area, high into like lower high, high into lower high, breaks down, sort of makes like a divergence into the low, right? So what I'm looking for right now is a flip of this area, right? That is the most obvious setup we could be taking on Hype. And I don't like to say that, okay, because Hype done this, that Mon is going to do the exact same, because that's not the case at all. Like April 2025 to May 2025, like BTC was trading up, right? And BTC was trading into sort of all-time highs, pretty much. So it's hard to say that this will do the exact same as Hype, but the setup is there, and the reason I took a position on Hype is because Sol done this exact same setup into its lows after its listing. So Hype done it, Sol done it, then Hype followed, and you know, I'm essentially expecting Mon to do a similar thing if we can flip 0.025. And that's basically what I'm going to look at buying, is a flip of 0.025 on Mon and target a move back towards the highs, like a 40 and then maybe in a 50% plus move, we can get flipped. But you can see that the first time back to this area on hype, it also put in like a bearish retest, right? So we could potentially try and look for a higher low here on Mon to get in, rather than waiting to chase for the break above 0.25. We could look for a higher low into this area. Let's see. Yeah, currently rejection from that developing yearly VWAP. Soul looks rough. No, it's fine. Oh, the music is fine. Okay. I'll take a look at Soul after Monad. Hype trades are weird. I also wanted to long hype this week, but I haven't got a trigger. Let me finish Monad. So yeah, Mon's a little bit tricky here. I think, you know, we can see that we are trying to trade back above this prior yearly value row low. Yeah, which realistically should hold. We should also realistically hold the prior quarterly value row low. Maybe we can put in a sort of, we can look for a long or higher low into 2-3 area. 0.023 into 0.0227. I think this looks like quite a good place to look for a higher low. I think it gets quite concerning for Mon if we can't hold this sort of green box. We want to kind of see a higher low into this area. I think that could be a really nice scenario right now, and that would help us from looking at front running this flip, right? If this flip is to play out. I'm just not a fan how we've sort of deviated back below the prior quarterly value very low, and also the developing quarterly value very high. So we longed them on today, 236, stops at 22. Do I think it's safe? I think, yeah, realistically it shouldn't drop back below 0.022. That's the, you can see it's prior yearly value very low, or what was the prior year from October. I wouldn't say it was necessarily the prior yearly value very low, because there was only a few months of trading, but you could probably say like, yeah, 2-1. Here again. Yeah, I don't think realistically, if it starts to close below 0.22, I think that's pretty rough from Mon. I would like to see it put in a higher low into this area, personally. Hi, one Lambo. How do your buy/sell signals working? What causes them to trigger? Like, what's the logic behind it? So these are based off essentially like overextended and underextended markets. They work the best on higher time frames. For example, here, this is the yearly VWAP on Monad. So they work best in on the lower time frame for basically scalping and intraday and stuff. But for big swings on the higher time frame, they can identify tops and bottoms based on price being heavily overextended or underextended using order flow tools, so like VWAP and Z-score. So what I have is a system that flags up when the market is essentially very heavily overextended or underextended. The downside, I mean, overextended in both directions. And then what I'll do is identify whether those signals are worth acting upon, really, because not all of them are, basically. But they work well on the higher time frame, on the yearly view op, for example. The gold top, the SanDisk top, which I gave some signals for last month, back in June. I basically was vocal on the SanDisk local top being quite close. Scan through all of them, but see, oil is up today. Trump started talking again, right? USA get kicked out the World Cup, and now he's talking about Iran again. Interesting. Went quiet just into the World Cup. Let's take a look at Sol. Take a look at Sol, and then I want to scan through some these stock charts. Oh, sorry, I hit my mic. I think I actually had some alerts go off on Sol today, this morning. Saw them come through. Yeah, 778. I think I was looking for a drop into this region. Excuse me. But yeah, you can see, like, not always the buy signals have a solid hit rate, right? But I prefer on like the daily. The higher time frame signals are great. 4 hour we can see. Often, you know, most of the time they're very close to these sort of spikes up. Like you see spike up, often very close to reversals. You know, they don't necessarily mark Pico tops and bottoms, but Sol is not looking great, no. I mean, it's on the verge of this being a bearish retest, right? A failed reclaim. I mean, that's what that looks like to me right now. You've got this prior support area right here. And it's essentially come up. Probably, I would say, has trapped some people into longing up here, and now is flushing them out. I mean, we can even take a look at the flow. I can imagine that some people started to chase Sol up here. I'm just heavily risked off in crypto coins and have been for well over 12 months now. I've been risked off like altcoins. I wouldn't say BTC, but yeah, we started to flush out some longs this morning. Oh, yesterday. Definitely starting to see some late shorts enter down here on Sol. So that's something to consider. Maybe we can get a little bounce if I get a buy trigger. I got some late shorts, mechanical bounce, but it's not looking great. 74 maybe for a bounce. Not a bad spot for a bounce or so. Quite like 74 into the prior monthly value or high, into the June value or high. Look for a bounce into here maybe. But overall, like this sort of failed reclaim on it is not looking ideal. $74 looks okay, but again, yeah, the stop is a little bit awkward. I think you're looking at a stop under $70 at least. The risk reward that right now is not optimal, really. Hi TMN. You recently figured out how I got my value error high and value error low values. Now you're curious and can't find how do you get the deviation areas highlighted. Do you mean the standard deviation areas? Well, this is a custom indicator that I built. But so these values that you can see on my screen, the gray areas that are marked are there's two values here. So these are all value error highs, right? This is a value error high. This is a value error high. This is a value error high. This top one is +3 standard deviation, right? This lower gray line, this is +2.5 standard deviation. Should have just typed it out. Standard deviation, and this singular value error high, this is +1. So your your normal one standard deviation from the VWAP, right? This is the VWAP. So then you got the VWAP here. The VWAP +1 standard deviation +2.5 standard deviation +3 standard deviation. And then obviously you have the same to the downside. Value error low, value error low, value error low, -1, -2.5, -3, right? So, and often once you'll find a move into the +2.5 to 3 standard deviation, this is very commonly a good place to look for a reversal. Right, so you can see what you have to understand is I always say this on my streams, and if someone's come from Discord, they're probably bored of it, but as much as you think price does this, it's not. It's doing this, right? And often this is a value, whether that's the VWAP or the one standard deviation, it will always like come back to rebalance. So when you look at taking trades on the +3 standard deviation, on the +2.5 standard deviation, you'll often find that price will always sort of rebalance, right? Spike up, rebalances, right? Spike up, rebalances, spikes up, rebalances, and then this ends up rebalancing, gets stuck below the VWAP. Okay, now the rotation comes and we break down, right? And obviously BTC sold off as well, but I think the BTC stuff really, so just got hit hard. But if your question was how do you add them, that should be on the indicator. So just a normal VWAP. You should just be able to add it. For example, here, if I go to the weekly, oh no, this is the quarterly. Just for example, this is just one VWAP indicator I clicked. You can press show fifth bands, right, and show fourth bands. We can see, look, it makes that 2.5, right? My standard deviation for the fourth bands is 2.5. Show fifth group bands, standard deviation above 5 is 3. So then what you get is that area highlighted, and you can see it matches up with my indicator as well. So if hopefully that answered your question. Weekly looks like a bad rejection on Sol. Yeah, probably. Yeah, like look at that weekly. It's just like a bearish retest in my eyes. Simple bearish retest, very similar to here, right? Break down, break support, came up, retest, break down, down, make support, bounce up, retest, break down. I'm still personally waiting for BTC to fill my spot bids at 57k. That is still the area I wish to be a buyer on BTC. $57 down to 52. My place, I want to be a buyer. Great. It's fine. All right, we can take a look at my watch list now. We'll have a scan through, see if we can find any potential trade ideas. Okay. Let's have a scan. AMD, yeah, this is still cooling off. I got some alerts at 490s, which, I mean, potentially get that filled this week, really. Stuck below the prior weekly value or low. All in all, looks pretty bearish for the week. I think 480s looks like a good spot. We have a prior weekly naked VWAP. A very important place for AMD actually. I think a much deeper pullback is gonna form for AMD under 500. Again, brings me back to that like sort of whole number. As I was discussing on gold, very similar scenario where we have a big whole number and someone is AI viewers. Someone's trying to get AI viewers. Not only that, but we can see how impactful this value area high was for AMD throughout the whole of Q2. It was a very strong region where AMD continued to bounce from time and time again. So you can almost understand that if we don't hold here and we start to accept below that Q2 value area high, right, which is this value here, Q2 area high, the dynamic shifts, right, the trend shifts a little bit, and there's a good chance we start to trade back down to 400. So I think for that reason we should definitely be interested in trying to be a buy on AMD into this area, at least because it's a must-hold region. That's quite enticing for me. If we don't hold here, and let's say we get a position and for whatever reason we get invalidated, I think that would be a clear sign for us to look at shorting any sort of bounce on AMD. That would be really nice. So yeah, we also have the prior monthly value area low down here. So a lot of key values for AMD to hold, in fact. Yeah, 480s, let's call it 480s, looks pretty good. 482 into this prior monthly value area low. Yeah, very important place for AMD to hold. Failing to hold there, yeah, we're going to get a move into the 400s, 425 down to 400. I'm going to leave that open for now in case we get some sort of aggressive drop next week or so. Sold your AMD bag for 20% back in October. Yeah, that's rough, Jonathan, but we accept what you got, right? Accept the profits you made. That's pretty important. I managed to get an entry in February and March this year, which I will, to be honest, depending how we react into this 500 region, I might look at selling. Yeah, I could sell my position under 500 if AMD loses there. So here's a pretty good example of why, you know, I guess you could say, fine, the buy signal played out, price bounced 40%, but that's why some of these signals work as simply just bounces rather than like long-term swings. But that was quite a nice buy signal. 28% bounce on AXTI. This ain't looking too hot, I'm not gonna lie. Stuck below the prior quarterly value or low, stuck below the developing yearly VWAP. This is probably gonna make new lows this week. XTI, no interest there. CCG, I think this is, yeah, nuclear uranium. Had my eye on this on for a while for a bounce. Potentially a nice divergence forming here on the daily. Let's see, actually, if we got a sweep into sub 90 into this prior yearly value or high with a nice divergence and a buy signal forming, I think this could be a nice place to be a buy for sure. For that reason, I'm going to set some alerts. Yeah. Yeah, I think the tech stocks, a lot of these stocks, they're very close now to some relief and some bounces. I would say in the next week or two, if we don't see any relief from a lot of these stocks, we are probably due for much further downside through summer, and likely that the summer seasonality is in full force. Let's see if we got any data this week. Oh, it's FOMC meeting minutes tomorrow. No data this week. Unemployment claims tomorrow. We got CPI next Tuesday. PPI next Wednesday. FOMC at the end of the month. So we have to see the general consensus for FOMC. Let's see. Lost it. Never mind. Yeah, maybe some bounces this week into next week. For FOMC. Do some more reading on that and numbers and things like CPI. So we got CPI and PPI next week, next Tuesday, Wednesday. So as of right now, like there's not necessarily anything to worry about too much about overheads, apart from if Trump keeps talking. I think that'd be the only downside. And then also when I'm talking relative to stocks, something relative to crypto is this the DXY. So this is one of the main reasons why I have been very cautious chasing this move on BTC specifically, but also why I believe that the bottom is not necessarily in on BTC. So the dollar index had its largest weekly close in well over a year now, in June, towards the end of June. And if you've been around a while, you'll know that often a strong dollar means weak risk assets. Often people preferring to stay in cash rather than assets. So we're seeing a bit of like I guess you could say rotation, especially in terms of like crypto. A weak dollar, a strong dollar recently has led to a weak crypto market specifically, and obviously over the past few weeks we've seen some pullbacks from stocks as well, a lot of these tech stocks. So this is something you have to be very careful of, because we had a strong weekly close from the DXY. Not only that, it's now looking like it's putting in quite a solid retest, right, on the daily, back towards this area, which previously we know, I mean, you can highlight this whole region. Previously we know has acted as a strong resistance, this 105 to 101 region. So what I've marked here is on the red chart. I try and align these so it makes it clearer. And this is this is one of the main reasons why I've been taking it slow over the past couple of weeks, in terms of like when I've had buy signals, they haven't been 100% for me to chase, simply because the conditions for being a buyer are not there, right? Like, okay, maybe the setup is okay, but outside of the setup there's overheads, and the overheads is that right now I don't believe this is a good market to be risking in. I think preserving capital at the moment is probably one of the better trades. But let's do this. I'll show you. Right. So, is the past 3 occasions where basically the DXY moved into this area. I mean, we can even We can even do more than one if you want. Let's go. We can go all the way back to here. So there's 3 occasions over the past year and a couple months where the DXY moved into this area. We can see back in April, we sort of lost that region, right? The DXY lost a huge level for it. And the crypto market responded really well. We came up, we bearish retested, the DXY sold off, crypto continued to trade up, right? Again here, moved into this area, DXY sold off, crypto bounced. Again, DXY sold off, crypto bounced, right? So now we're back to this area which previously has reacted in favor of crypto. Yet now we're seeing a strength from the dollar at a level that hasn't been cracked for well over a year, like I said. Not only that, but the structure on BTC is not favorable right now. So you have a strong dollar and a weak BTC structure. This is not a good combination for you if you're looking at getting along into this area. Like, you've got BTC rejecting off a weekly support area. Look at the weekly, right? Weekly support, previous support rejecting. And meanwhile, you've got the dollar reclaiming. Now, the most clear trigger you're going to get right now to be risk on is if this dollar bounce fails. If this dollar bounce basically fails and drops below 101 and BTC does something like this, right? Happy days. This is amazing. This is like risk on, like, up your risk, and everyone is happy buying whatever you want every day, and the dollar remains weak, and BTC should get a good move up, probably into the 80s again. But until we get something like that, this is a no-go area for being a buyer. And until the dollar deviates or eventually shows weakness much higher, I think remaining risk off on crypto is important, and stocks as well. Like if the dollar sort of falls below here again, we don't have FOMC for a few weeks still, so a dollar could continue to rally over the next few weeks, and risk assets could continue to suffer. I need to do a bit more reading on FOMC and that data and what to expect. So it's just important to be aware of this, and this is one of the main reasons why I took the gas off the pedal, or took the foot off the gas, I guess. Saying is back in June, as soon as the dollar broke this level, for me it was not a place I want to be committing to the same frequency of trades and the same risk in the market. So my past couple of weeks have been super boring trading wise, but I'm not going to force positions for the sake of it. Like, there's too many overheads at the moment. With that in mind though, like, it doesn't mean I won't take a long. Like, I've been waiting for this area on AMD for a while now. I think the AMD could be a really nice long into this area, and equally MU as well. I haven't exactly got a buy signal on this yet, but I quite like MU into this 860s to 870 region. If we can get a sweep on MU into 860s to 850s this week, I think we could try a long one. DXY retested quite nicely unless it's a deviation. Yeah, exactly. A pretty clean retest. Who do we think's winning the World Cup anyway? You guys are watching the World Cup, that is. I've got Argentina in my sweepstake, and obviously I would love England to win. Think France will win? Yeah, I mean, they will most definitely be in the final. I think it'll be France against either England or Argentina. Oh shit, CF is bouncing. Reclaimed 109. I longed this. Oh man. I longed this in the group into 102. And we got stopped break even here. Bounced, got stopped break even, and now it's legging up. Oh god, I had a Pico bottom entry on this. Oh, that's gutting. I'll try and find a new entry on it, I guess. Like, it's just such a clean retest of that prior all-time high. I'd like the fake out. We sort of like bidded the breakdown. Oh, that's gutting. Yeah, I should probably put this back on my radar. It's just been up only. Belows. So. I'll have to watch Intrigue for a buy signal, but it's not given many opportunities for that. Yeah, coin is looking pretty cooked, below 160, 166. Not best. I've got some intra-week buy signals here on it, actually. I'm just not massively fond of trying to like buy crypto stocks at the moment with the way BTC is looking. It's just chopping really. I think 150s would be a nicer trade right now for this. Especially like, despite having these like intra-week buy signals, I mean, maybe we'll get like what 2% bounce on it, but it's trading below the prior yearly, the developing yearly value area low, the 2024 value area low, trading below the Q2 value area low, the Q1 value area low. This is not a favorable trade to take right now. Coin, despite like having some quite nice buy signals on the weekly, like outside of that, it's not looking the best. You could potentially buy a reclaim of 165, but I mean, our circle, I'm gonna expect no different really. Can I ask what your thoughts are on ETH, or are you not interested in it, especially with the latest news and MicroStrategy? We can talk about MicroStrategy as well. ETH, honestly, man, I have not like looked at ETH for ages. Like Tom Lee it's scary how much he's down and how much he's underwater. I think people are like paid so much attention to what Sailor is doing when Tom Lee is down just as much on Ethereum. Like personally, I think in a bear market this can or in this bear market, I think this can go to sub 1K. I have no interest in ETH unless it would go down to like a relatively very, very cheap area, which would at this point be under 1K. Or we see some sort of huge relief bounce from it and maybe higher time frame shift in structure, being a weekly break back above 2200 or 2500, some sort of significant level. But until then, I don't believe it being a buyer on ETH, and I think this is destined for going below 1K at least. MicroStrategy, I caught a nice bounce on this into $80, into the 2021 and 2024 value are high. I wanted to short 107, but it got this week, but it just got front run. On Tuesday. It doesn't look bad for a potential high low into 90s. This could offer a bounce this week into the 90s. Into the prior monthly value or low, into the developing monthly 2.5 to 3 standard deviation. Like there's a good chance it could lock in a little higher low here and see a further bounce. Yeah, this is kind of enticing here on MicroStrategy. BTC is not looking the best, but kind of go hand in hand, right? They move together. Maybe buy 50% here, 50% into 90, or maybe just setting a limit into 90. I think I'll wait for 90. I think MicroStrategy. I'll keep an eye on this. I'll watch for a sweep into 90 today, or this week, sorry, and maybe we can scale into MicroStrategy long. I'll start to wrap things up. The last thing I want to discuss is obviously my BTC outlook. Overall, my plan remains the same. I think as long as we don't get above 66k and reclaim 66k, I think 57 to 52k is a great place to be a long-term buyer on BTC. What I am very open to is the fact that if we did reclaim 66k 66 to 68k, I would be very inclined to say that the bear market low is in. As soon as we break this structure of forming a support, breaking it and rejecting, forming support, breaking it and rejecting, support, break it, reject, support, break it, reject, right? As soon as we break this, and let's just say over the next few weeks, for whatever reason, BTC reclaims 66 to 68k, I would be very inclined to say that this is the bear market low, right? But I would only call that if we reclaim 68. I think if we can get above 68 with everything that's happening at the moment with Trump, with the fact that Saylor sold 200 million worth of Bitcoin, like ETFs, like huge ETF selling, and let's just say like we still managed to hold here and we reclaim 68k. I think this is really bullish, a really bullish scenario, and I would be inclined to say that that's the bear market low. Until then, you know, these are my spot bids. This is an area I continue to wait for, and continue to believe that like long term we are forming a bottom down here. We start to go under the 50s, it gets a little bit concerning. That's where I'll probably close my buys on BTC. If we start to break below 50k, for me that's very concerning. Deviating under here, under this area, and closing below the 2021 all-time high and the 2024 range low, I think it gets really scary under here. And that's when we would probably see huge sales start to come in from Saylor and probably quite a large capitulation in the market. But that's only if we lose 50s. I think until then it makes sense to hold 50s. Gotta look at my scroll. Historically, buying into this area has been very profitable for BTC over cycles, many cycles. So, you know, the thing we just don't have yet is a wick. Often we've wicked into this area, whereas now we're just sort of stalling into this region. So that's why I'm kind of looking for one wick lower into sort of 57 and to bottom into here. But I'd be very open to the fact that that would not happen if we reclaimed 66. That's my chase scenario. I got just about to wrap it up. But yeah, overall, a few trades I'm looking at for this week. AMD, I think sweep into the 500, just under 500 looks good. Coin doesn't look bad. I wouldn't mind longing 150. MicroStrategy, I think we could try a higher low into 90s on MicroStrategy. Monad, this was something we discussed. I think we can look for a long on Monad into 2.2 for a higher low and target probably a 3.5 plus. I think very important area for Monad to hold. To here, we look for a higher low, targeting 0.032 plus. Hype looks okay. Would like to long 65 if possible. I'm going to keep an eye on it this week. Down here into 65 looks good for a long. What did we discuss? Riot, I'm looking for a new buy on this. That's about it. Didn't see any active opportunities throughout the stream, but also trade for the sake of it. Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks if you tuned in. Make sure you check out the links in the description. I'll probably be on stream again next Wednesday, similar sort of time. I think I prefer doing this time than in the morning. So yeah, I will catch you then. Have a good week. Bye bye.